Hey everyone, and welcome. We're gonna do a deep dive today into the future of learning.
I like it.
Yeah, we're looking at Acton Academy, which is like, wow, this school is like flipping the script.
Yeah, they're doing some really interesting things.
And then Street Epistemology, which is a way to kind of like get down to the nitty gritty of what we believe.
Yeah, the foundations of our thinking.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one.
Me too. The cool combo. You know, we always talk about like education needs to like adapt to the 21st century, right?
Right.
But these two ideas, I think, actually give us some like concrete ways to do that.
Okay, so let's start with Acton Academy. It's not even just like a school. It's like...
It's an adventure.
It's a learning adventure, yeah. So like instead of like the classrooms and teachers, they've got...
Studios and guides.
And the kids are heroes.
I love that.
On these learning quests. So it's like a whole different way of thinking about like, what is education?
Yeah, it really is. And right off the bat, Acton really addresses like a problem that I think a lot of us, like we feel it, you know, with traditional schooling.
Yeah.
Like it's so focused on memorization, standardized tests, and it's like, at what cost? You know, we're like killing curiosity, problem solving, you know, the things these kids are going to need in this like crazy fast changing world.
Well, and that whole like hero thing, it's so fascinating to me because it implies agency. It's like you're not just sitting there receiving information. You're like on a mission, you know? You're an active participant in your learning. So how does that actually like play out in an Acton classroom? Like what are the specifics?
Well, one thing is like how they structure the learning environment is so different. You know, they have these mixed age studios where older students mentor younger students.
Oh, cool.
So they're not competing for grades.
Right.
They're actually collaborating and learning from each other.
Oh, I love that.
And it builds this incredible sense of community.
I can see that, like reading leadership skills in the older kids.
Absolutely.
And then confidence in the younger ones. It's like win-win.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, so what about like the actual content though? Do they still follow a traditional curriculum?
You know, not exactly. So while they do cover like core subjects, the approach is way more project-based, interdisciplinary.
Okay.
So instead of lectures, they have Socratic discussions where students engage with these big ideas, ethical dilemmas.
Okay.
And it's not just theoretical, right?
Yeah.
They do these real-world quests where they have to apply what they've learned to solve problems in their community.
So it's like less about just memorizing facts and more about like applying the knowledge, right?
Exactly.
Which makes a lot of sense in the real world.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious about these Socratic discussions.
Yeah.
Can you give us like an example of what one might look like at Acton? Like what kind of questions are they throwing at these kids?
Sure. So let's say they're exploring like the concept of fairness. Right. So instead of just like defining it, you know, from a dictionary, they're given like a real world scenario. Maybe like a news story about a controversial business decision. And they have to like think about it from multiple perspectives, you know?
Okay.
And the guide might ask like, well, what does fairness even mean to you?
Oh, that's a good one.
Who benefits from this decision and who might be harmed?
Yeah.
Is there a way to make this decision more equitable? Like it's really pushing them to think critically.
Right. Wrestle with
these complex issues.
Yeah, the messy stuff.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
It is.
But what about like the softer skills, which we know are just as important for success in life?
Oh, absolutely.
So does Acton address those things like character development, emotional intelligence?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So alongside, you know, the academics, there's a huge focus on developing character traits like perseverance, empathy, integrity.
Okay.
They even have a system where students earn badges for demonstrating these qualities. So
Gamification.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about like really cultivating well-rounded individuals who are not just smart, but also kind, responsible, ethical.
Okay, so I'm seeing the picture here. Acton's not just about churning out like straight A students. It's about creating like thoughtful, capable people.
Yeah, who are ready for the real world.
Who can deal with the messiness of the real world.
Exactly. And that's where street epistemology comes in.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Because street epistemology, the name, it sounds a little, you know, intimidating.
Yeah, it sounds a little rough.
Yeah, but it's not about like arguing on street corners or anything like that.
No.
It's more about like becoming aware of our own thinking, right?
Yes.
And being willing to examine our beliefs, but like in a structured way.
Yeah, a respectful way.
A respectful way. Why don't you unpack that for us a little?
Sure. So at its core, street epistemology is about understanding the why behind our beliefs. So it's not about winning arguments or forcing people to change their minds.
Right.
It's about having these open, honest conversations to see if our beliefs are actually like based on solid reasoning or if we've just kind of adopted them without really questioning.
So it's like holding up a mirror to your own thinking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but how do you actually use it? Like, can you give us a concrete example? A real life, like, here's how street epistemology works.
Sure. Think of a common belief like breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Okay, yeah. We've all heard that.
Right. A lot of us accept that as fact.
Yeah.
But how do we know that?
Right.
Like, what's the evidence? Using street epistemology, we would ask questions like, how confident am I in this belief?
Oh, interesting.
What's my source? Is it personal experience, something I heard growing up? You know, is there actual scientific research? And what would it take for me to reconsider this belief?
That's a great example because it's not about proving breakfast wrong.
Right.
It's
Understanding why we think that.
Yeah. And I can already see how, like, this combined with the way Acton Academy does things could be, like, really special because they both emphasize that, like, self-directed learning, the critical thinking, and being respectful in communication.
It's a perfect match.
Yeah.
Imagine an Acton student who is, like, passionate about starting their own business.
Yeah, which we see a lot of.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So they've got that entrepreneurial spirit. That's fantastic. But what happens when they hit a roadblock?
Yeah.
You know, what if their initial business, but like it just doesn't work out?
That's where street epistemology, I think,
It's huge.
becomes really powerful, right? Because instead of getting, like, discouraged or giving up,
Totally. Yeah.
they can use these tools to kind of examine their assumptions.
Exactly. Instead of thinking like, my idea failed,
Right.
they might ask, okay, what could I be missing here?
Right.
What were my key assumptions, you know, about the market, about the product, about my target audience? How can I, like, test those assumptions more rigorously?
Yeah, so it's like turning a setback into a learning opportunity.
Totally.
And a chance to, like, refine your approach.
Yes.
Become more resilient, which is,
a huge skill
yeah, a big deal.
for anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
All
Not
right.
just entrepreneurs.
Right. Okay, so let's get into some more nitty-gritty here.
Okay.
Because the source material mentions some specific ways that street epistemology could, like, actually be integrated into Acton Academy.
Yeah.
Like, on the ground. What are some of those? Like, some real examples?
Well, one that jumps out is how it can enhance those Socratic discussions
Oh, yeah.
that we were talking about.
Okay, so we've got these kids. They're already talking about big ideas. They're thinking critically.
Right.
But now we bring in street epistemology. How does that change the conversation?
Well, imagine a group of students grappling with a real-world ethical dilemma, right?
Okay.
Maybe they're debating the pros and cons of some new technology or, you know, discussing a current event that has, like, complex moral implications. And instead of just, like, stating their opinions or trying to, like, win the argument,
Yeah.
they're encouraged to examine the foundations of their beliefs.
Okay, so, like, how would they do that?
Well, they might ask each other, okay, what values are informing your position?
Okay.
What evidence supports your view? What are the potential consequences of this action, both positive and negative?
Yeah.
And what would it take for you to reconsider your stance?
Wow, those are some deep questions.
They are, yeah.
For any age, let alone for, you know,
Especially for kids.
kids. But it does sound like it would create a much, like, richer discussion.
It does. It
Yeah.
moves the conversation away from, like, right versus wrong
Right.
and towards this deeper understanding of the complexity.
Yeah, the nuance.
The nuance, yeah.
The gray area.
And it helps the students develop empathy for different perspectives.
Oh, that's key.
Yeah, even ones that they might disagree with.
Oh, that is a skill we could all use a little more of these days. Okay, the source material also talks about these student-led accountability sessions,
Yes.
which are, like, really central to the Acton model, right?
Yeah, they are.
So these kids have a lot of autonomy.
They do.
They help create the rules, they hold each other accountable.
Yeah, it's like a mini democracy.
Right. But I can imagine that could also lead to some, like, conflict and disagreements. So how does street epistemology help with that?
Well, instead of it becoming like a blame game or a power struggle,
Right.
street epistemology helps students understand the root cause of the conflict.
Oh, interesting.
So, you know, A student breaks a rule that the community has agreed upon.
Okay.
Instead of just focusing on, like, the transgression,
Right.
they might ask, okay, why did you choose to break this rule? What were you hoping to achieve? What did you consider before making that decision?
It's a completely different approach.
It is.
It's less about, like, punishment and more about, like, understanding.
Yeah, understanding, even empathy.
Yeah. Okay, so this sounds great in, like, an ideal setting.
Right.
But I have to wonder, like, what are the challenges of actually bringing this street epistemology idea into a school environment?
Sure.
I mean, some people might see it as, like, a threat to their beliefs.
For sure, for sure.
Especially if those beliefs are, like, really deeply held.
Yeah, so it's important to approach this with, like, sensitivity and clarity, right?
Yeah.
It's crucial to emphasize that street epistemology is not about undermining anyone's beliefs.
Okay.
It's simply a tool for examining those beliefs more thoughtfully and understanding where they come from.
So it's not about, like, converting people to your point of view.
No.
It's more about, like, self-reflection.
Exactly, yeah. It's about recognizing that our beliefs are often based on a combination of factors, personal experiences, cultural influences, things we were taught growing up.
Sure.
And it's about being willing to ask ourselves, how do I know this is true? What evidence do I have? And what would it take for me to reconsider?
Yeah, I can see how that kind of thinking could be unsettling for some folks.
It can, yeah.
Especially if their beliefs are, like, closely tied to their identity.
Right, or their sense of belonging.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important for, guides and parents to understand this.
Yeah.
And communicate the purpose of street epistemology, effectively.
Right. It's about empowerment, not about, like,
Exactly.
telling people what to think.
Yeah. And the other thing to keep in mind is development, right? Kids' minds are still developing.
Yeah.
So how do you adapt this approach for different age groups, different learning styles? I mean, you wouldn't use the same techniques with a first grader as you would with a high school student.
Okay, so how would you adjust it for, like, a younger learner?
Well, with younger learners, you might focus on more concrete beliefs, like about everyday things.
Okay.
So, for example, instead of debating the merits of a political system.
Right, which a first grader probably wouldn't be doing anyway.
You might explore a child's belief that their favorite superhero is the strongest one ever.
Okay, I can see that.
Right.
So instead of shutting down their enthusiasm,
right.
you would guide them to explore that belief a little deeper.
Exactly.
Be like, well, what makes you think they're the strongest? What powers do they have? Are there any other superheroes who might be just as strong or even stronger?
Totally. Yeah, it's about planting the seeds of critical thinking early on.
Yeah.
And helping kids understand that even our most cherished beliefs should be open to questioning and revision as we learn and grow.
That's a skill that will benefit them no matter what they do, right?
It will.
It's about, like, being comfortable with uncertainty, being open to new information.
Yeah.
Being able to, like, change your mind when presented with new evidence.
Exactly. It's about becoming a lifelong learner.
Yeah. Okay, but let's be real. Even if we, like, acknowledge the benefits, the potential here, are there any practical hurdles to actually implementing this stuff? Like, especially within the Acton model?
Oh, of course, yeah. Anytime you introduce a new approach, there are going to be challenges.
Yeah.
One might be, just finding the time and space for these kinds of conversations.
Yeah. I mean, Acton days are already packed with projects and quests.
Yeah, they're busy.
Socratic discussions.
Right.
So it's about, like, being intentional about how you integrate it.
Yeah.
Right.
It is.
Maybe, like, carving out specific time slots for inquiry sessions, or, like, weaving it into the activities that are already happening.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Another challenge might be ensuring that the guides are properly trained in street epistemology.
Oh, right.
It's not something you can just, like, pick up overnight.
Yeah.
It requires practice and, a certain level of finesse to facilitate these conversations well.
Yeah, because you want to do it in a way that feels empowering, right?
Yeah.
Not
manipulative.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about tricking kids into changing their minds.
Yeah.
It's about giving them the tools to think critically for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction.
It is.
But I think these challenges, they're not insurmountable.
No, I don't think so either.
Especially if you've got, like, the buy-in, right?
Yeah.
From the administration, from the guides.
The parents, yeah.
The parents.
Yeah.
So what about the potential impact? Like, if we zoom out for a second and imagine a world where, like, more and more schools are doing this.
Yeah.
What might we see?
That's where it gets really exciting, right?
Okay.
Imagine a generation of graduates who are not just knowledgeable
Right.
about all these different subjects, but they're also like skilled in critical thinking.
Yes.
They're comfortable challenging their own assumptions.
Right.
They're adept at having like respectful dialogue,
Uh-huh.
even with people who have like totally different
It's
viewpoints.
like a world where people are less likely to be swayed by like misinformation. Totally. Yeah.
Or like just blindly follow dogma, you know?
Yeah, they can think for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And they're more likely to approach like the complex issues
Yeah.
with nuance, with empathy.
So we're talking about like a potential cultural shift here.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
about moving away from this culture of certainty
Right.
and being right all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And embracing a culture of curiosity,
Uh-huh.
intellectual humility,
Right.
lifelong learning.
Okay, that sounds pretty utopian.
Yeah.
But I have to wonder, is this just like a nice-sounding theory?
Right?
Or is there any evidence that this combo, Acton Academy and Street Epistemology,
Uh-huh.
actually works?
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
And of course, like long-term studies, they're still ongoing.
Sure.
But there are like anecdotal reports from Acton Academy graduates that are pretty encouraging.
Oh.
You know, a lot of these grads, they describe themselves as like way more confident, more adaptable.
More prepared to deal with like the messiness of the real world
Right.
compared to their peers who went through traditional schooling.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like individual success, right? Or
Okay.
if we're raising a generation of kids who are critical thinkers, but they're also empathetic,
Yeah.
good communicators,
Right.
that has like implications for society as a whole, right?
Huge implications, yeah. Imagine a world where our leaders,
Right.
our policymakers, our innovators
Yeah.
are all equipped with these tools.
That's a great point.
Right. It could change how we approach things like climate change,
Right.
social inequality, political polarization.
Yeah, so it's like a ripple effect almost.
It is, yeah.
Right. Like by changing the way we educate kids, we could potentially like change the world.
That's the hope, right?
Yeah, that's a big hope.
It is a big hope, but, you know, there's no guarantee.
Right.
But I think the potential benefits are, like, huge.
Yeah, they're worth exploring.
Worth exploring, yeah.
Okay, so let's bring it back down to earth for a second.
Okay.
Because you mentioned earlier, like, the practical stuff.
Yeah.
The how-to. So let's say a school,
Huh?
maybe even an Acton Academy,
Right.
decides, we want to try this street epistemology thing.
Okay.
Where do they even begin?
Well, I think the first step is to create a culture of inquiry.
Okay.
So this means shifting away from the traditional model,
Mm-hmm.
where the teacher is the holder of all knowledge,
Right.
right? And towards a model where everyone, teachers and students,
Mm-hmm.
are all engaged in this, like, collaborative search for understanding.
So it's about normalizing questioning.
Yes.
And making it clear that it's not, like, a sign of disrespect or anything. It's a valuable part of learning.
It is, yeah.
Okay. And then once you've kind of established that, then you can start bringing in the actual,
The techniques.
the techniques, yeah.
The tools, yeah.
So what might that look like?
Well, one approach could be to dedicate, like, specific times for what we might call, like, inquiry sessions,
Okay.
where students choose a belief they hold. Could be about their work, their community, even themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they walk through a series of, like, probing questions.
So it's like a dedicated space for, like, self-reflection,
Yes.
critical thinking.
Yeah. And remember, the emphasis isn't on getting the right answer.
Right.
It's about understanding the reasoning process,
Right.
the evidence, the assumptions.
Your why. Right.
The why, exactly.
And maybe even discovering that there isn't one right answer.
Sometimes there isn't, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And another way to integrate it is to weave it into those projects
Okay.
or quests. So let's say the students are collaborating on a business venture.
Right, which we see a lot of at Acton.
We do, right. So instead of just going with their gut,
Yeah.
they can use street epistemology to guide their decision-making.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so instead of arguing about which marketing strategy is best,
Right.
they ask, well, what evidence supports each approach? What are the potential downsides? What would make us change our minds?
So it's about bringing like a level of rigor
It is.
to the conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that.
yeah. And even those student-led accountability sessions
Oh,
that
yeah.
we talked about
Right.
could be enriched with this.
So I'm sensing a theme here. It
Okay.
sounds like this could be applied to pretty much any part
It can.
of the Acton model.
It can, yeah. That's what's so great about it.
Yeah, it's flexible.
It's flexible, it's adaptable,
So as we wrap up our deep dive here into Acton Academy and street epistemology, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think it's this. The future of learning isn't about cramming more information into our heads. It's about developing the skills and the mindsets we need to navigate this complex, ever-changing world.
Yeah.
And I think the combination of Acton Academy with its innovative approach and the tools of street epistemology, it offers a really powerful path forward.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
This has been a really, really insightful conversation.
I've enjoyed it.
I'm walking away not only with a better understanding of these concepts, but also a sense of optimism about the potential of education to really shape a better future.
I agree.
So to our listeners out there, if you're feeling inspired by what you've heard today, I really encourage you to explore it further.
Yeah.
Maybe check out Acton Academy or, just start incorporating some of these principles into your own life.
Yeah, little by little.
Yeah, become more thoughtful, more curious, more open-minded.
That's what it's all about.
And who knows, maybe we can all create that ripple effect together.
Maybe we can.
Make the world a little bit brighter. That's a great place to end it. Thanks for joining us for this depth dive.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep those minds curious.
Yes.
Keep those conversations flowing.